With 5.2 patch going live, Fiona is reintroduced into the meta with her Synesthesia upgrade. Previously, Lin was the first character to receive the Synesthesia enhancement, and depending on your level of investment, it certainly brought her back into relevancy. Now, it's Fiona's turn to shine, and what does her Synesthesia offer? Let's take a look. If you're new to Tower of Fantasy, Synesthesia is a system introduced to boost the powers of older and popular characters. Currently, only 2 characters have this Synesthesia upgrade, Lin and Fiona. Clicking on the weapon, you can access the Synesthesia menu by clicking on Upgrade and then the Synesthesia tab on your left. In this interface, you can see 6 circles, each representing an advancement that correlates to the weapon stars. In other words, if you have 1-star Fiona, you can only upgrade 1 level of Synesthesia. 6-star Fionas can go the distance, 6 Synesthesia upgrades. Simple. How do you upgrade them? If you have 120 shards, you can click on the circles and press Upgrade to level it up. You have to start from the bottom and work your way up. You can't click on the middle or last circle and choose which to upgrade. It's a linear progression. So let's take a look at each of these upgrades. We'll call them S1 to S6 to make things easier. At S1, it increases Fiona's discharge multiplier to 4000% and doubles up when you use it in Bygone, Origin of War, and Raids. At the time of making this video, Fiona's S1 ability is bugged. You're dealing way more than 4k% damage in these modes. Just an example, in Bygone, she's melting enemies left and right with her discharge. I don't even know how this was allowed to go live when it was reported in the test servers. What the hell? Anyway, to my dear viewers watching in the future, this S1 boosts the damage of her discharge, and that's all. Her S2 increases all elemental damage by 3%. This is similar to Lin's S2 buff as well. You can refer to them as warehouse buffs. What that means is, even if you're not using their weapons, your elemental damage is increased by 3%. And yes, they do add up. If you have Lin S2 and Fiona S2, you're looking at 6% elemental damage increased for all your weapon comps. Nice! S3 extends the duration of her discharge effects when you're using different resonances. Tanks gain extra resistances, attack or balance gains some attack percent boost, and Benediction mode heals more for extended durations. A utility upgrade, but sadly it's for your own self and not buffing the team. S4 increases your own final damage and gives 1 extra crystal when using her discharge. Nothing too fancy here. Her S5 is similar to the S2 buff, where you gain an extra elemental damage boost. This S5 and S2 are additive. If you possess a S5 Fiona, you get a total of 6% elemental damage buff to your weapons. Combined with Lin S5, that's a total of 13% elemental damage overall. Powerful stuff. S6 increases the elemental crystal limit by 1. This additional crystal gives a slight final damage boost to yourself, but more importantly, it allows Benediction players to execute bosses at a higher threshold. The current Fiona with max crystals can end bosses at 12% HP. With S6 Fiona, they can execute the bosses as long as they have 14% HP remaining on the health bar. This S6 would benefit those Benediction mains that utilize her execution ability in competitive gameplay. Think team ranking modes like Origin of War or Raids, where the teams compete for the best timer. S6 Fiona and her 14% execution would be a decisive factor in time attack rankings. A must for those Benediction rankers. With that said, what are the recommendations for Synesthesia? For those who possess 6-star Fiona, doing the latest events and using those free balls given will give you a head start to upgrade her Synesthesia levels. You can also get some from the weekly commissary shop, which now offers Fiona and Lin shards. Whales and Rankers would get her to S5 as soon as they can, because those elemental damage buffs are important for DPS to break through their personal best timers. I mean, S5 Fiona can boost their damage by a few gigs in 90 seconds, not something to be taken lightly, and if you have the resources, why not? For those that want to wait it out, it takes about 30 weeks to get enough free shards from the shop on top of the event shards, so that's about 7 to 8 months to max her Synesthesia. Free is free, y'all. And for those without 6-star Fiona, the question is always, should I pull her or not? In my humble opinion, if you want to play as a Benediction support, you should pull Fiona and max her stars. Fiona is still very relevant in team play, and as a support, she has a lot to offer at max stars. But if you don't care about the meta, or if you're not really interested in playing a support class, then no. Invest your pulls in other altered characters like Void Piercer or even Nola. Just to bring it back a little, Lin's S1 increases the multipliers of her petals and damage in Origin of War. Nothing too big, we still don't use her in OOW for DPS anyway. Her S2 and S5, as mentioned earlier, acts as a warehouse buff for elemental damage boost, 7% in total. S3 extends her Moonlight Realm duration, and S6 extends the realm's effect of 23% attack buff to your teammates as well. This is kind of handy if your team needs additional attack buffs for the DPS. Some meta teams use Lin in raids, as you can have up to 4 Benediction users at times, so bringing S6 Lin could be a good boost to the overall attack, as you just have to keep casting her realm under your teammates for the bonus. S4 is her strongest Synesthesia upgrade in my opinion. You deal a lot more damage in Bygone and Sequential Phantasm mode based on the sum of your stats. So all altered teams that run Nola, Void Piercer and Lin, or Void Piercer, Nanyin and Lin, do benefit greatly from her S4 buffs in these modes. The only drawback is you gotta keep those bosses in the circle as well, which sometimes is annoying. I'm looking at you, Chiron. Synesthesia is really designed to bring those popular characters back into the meta for those who have them, yet not taking anything away from the top meta teams. For the DPS mains that care about meta or already have these units at max stars, they will eventually complete the Synesthesia upgrades by whaling those cheaper shards or just getting it from the commissary shop as time goes by. It is an interesting system, minus the bugs of course, but it does make one wonder about the next in line to receive this. If it's meant to be only for altered, then an S6 Nanyin sounds pretty strong, or at the very least, good for elemental teams and not only for all altered. Only time will tell. Till then, I'll see y'all in the next one.